Chapter 1. At 6 o'clock in the evening, Lao Gao set up his wonton stall in Dog Street. The strong aroma of minced meat filled the whole street, covering the smell of chopped green onions. Lao Gao sat on a long bench holding a teacup, watching the diners passing by the stall. Some of them came for the secret dog meat hot pot in Hua Ting restaurant, and some came for the deer antler wine in Man Ziyang restaurant. Lao Gao knew that they would not take a glance at his wonton soup at this moment, so he stayed in a corner and did not attempt to call customers to eat his wontons. By 10 o'clock, the situation would change. People who want to quench their thirst and wash their oil after overeating will walk into his red tent one after another. Lao Gao would wait until midnight when the whole street was empty, and he would give up the idea of waiting for one more customer and push his cart away. The messy Dog Street is similar to what one would call ghost market. After eating too much dog meat and drinking too much wine, those old gourmets became a little abnormal. With bloodshot eyes and white foam on the lips, they urinate and vomit in the street. Lao Gao disliked this place more and more. He hoped to quickly save enough money to buy a house for his son in Zhi County and retire. At 8 o'clock in the evening, there were not too many people on the street, for many were busy drinking and eating. The water in the big pot was steaming white, and the wrapped wontons were divided into small portions and placed in square white porcelain basins. Everything was ready. Gao couldn't think of anything else to do, so he put on his reading glasses and read the Oily Story Club again. His first guest arrived just when he started reading 2 lines. It was normal for guests to come early or late, but he didn't expect that the first guest today would be the god of wine, Bao Yiding. There were many diners with a large drinking capacity on Dog Street, but they were all regarded as wine maniacs. Only Bao Yiding could bear the reputation of god of wine. He doesn't talk much, never loses his temper after drinking, and never pretends to be crazy. Even if he drinks too much and vomits, he is always quiet. 2 weeks ago, Lao Gao saw him scratching his throat under the electric pole opposite, shrinking his neck, looking extremely uncomfortable, but after vomiting to death, he used a basin to collect water to wash himself clean, and walked back to the restaurant with his back straight. "Give me a bowl of wontons." Bao Yiding put the bag on the table. He was not in a good mood, and his voice was a little depressed. The wontons were tumbling in the boiling water, and Lao Gao carefully observed the heat. When the wontons floated up, they should be taken out immediately. If they were delayed, the taste would be sticky and the meat would not be tender enough. While waiting, he raised his eyes slightly and saw a homeless man across the street. The corner of his eye suddenly jumped. This homeless man had matted and dirty hair, a dirty and dark face, and tattered clothes. He looked no different from other homeless people wandering on the Dog Street, but his posture was odd. He sat on a fire hydrant next to a stinky ditch, his upper body straight, his arms supporting his knees. His tense posture was like a mad dog that was tense and ready to bite at any time. Lao Gao didn't dare to look at him anymore. He served the wontons to Bao Yiding, who was sitting on a long bench. Bao Yiding said thank you and lowered his head to eat. "How does it taste?" asked Lao Gao a little nervous. "Delicious." "Really delicious?" he asked again. "Really delicious." Bao Yiding replied and raised his head and emphasized really. Lao Gao heard his honest reply and smiled contentedly, rubbing his hands with his apron, and said, "Thank you for your kind comment. Why didn't you go drinking tonight?" Bao Yiding was stunned for a moment, then looked up at him. "Do you know me? Who on this street doesn't know you? When it comes to drinking, you are this one." Lao Gao gave a thumbs up. The smile on Bao Yiding's face evaporated like water vapor, and he lowered his head to drink the clear soup in the bowl as if deliberately avoiding something. Lao Gao was a little embarrassed, coughed and went to change a piece of honeycomb coal for the charcoal stove. The homeless man next to the stinky ditch disappeared out of thin air again. "Boss, give me another bowl." Bao Yiding called him. "Okay." Lao Gao lifted the white cotton gauze on the table, picked up a portion of wontons, and threw it into the pot. After taking it out with the soup, He dripped a few drops of sesame oil and sprinkled a handful of chopped green onions. Here it comes. Bao Yiding did not show an appetite for a second bowl, but he was more interested in saying something. He blew the soup gently and asked Lao Gao, "Did I make a lot of mistakes when I drank before?" "No, you're fine." Lao Gao shrank his chin. Wine is the essence of grain. The more you drink, the younger you are." "Young? I'm already 45. You have to be a little more careful." Lao Gao agreed with him. "This kind of idle chat originally has no principle to it, it's just to kill time. I used to like drinking, but now I drink tea instead. Tea is the soul of the tree, the more you taste it, the more energetic you are." "I'll never drink again," Bao Yiding said in a low voice. "No need to go that far really, it wouldn't be a problem if you just drink less. I just got the hospital report, late-stage liver cancer." "Who are you talking about?" "I myself." "How is it possible?" Lao Gao's eyebrows twisted together in an exaggerated way to show surprise. But this result is not surprising to a man like him who is over 60 years old. Even if it is a cow, if it is soaked in wine jars all day, it will get into trouble sooner or later, but most people will only regret it when it is irreversible. There is no point in saying this now. Bao Yiding saw his embarrassment and comforted him, "It's nothing anyway. Check it again, check it carefully, go to a big hospital. What can our county hospital find out?" "I thought so too." Bao Yiding looked gloomy, "So I went to the provincial capital today, and the result I got this morning was the same as what the county hospital said, liver cancer, late stage, incurable. Check it again." "No, I'll just let it be." Bao Yiding shook his head and said, "Even if I live another 100 years, I'll just drinking 100 more years. I'll die if I die, but I wronged my wife and children. I feel sorry for hurting them." "It's never too late, there's still a chance," replied Lao Gao. "If there's really a chance, I'll treat them well." Bao Yiding wiped from the corner of his mouth with a napkin, and wiped the corner of his eyes. "Sit for a while, I'll add 2 tea eggs for you." Lao Gao stood up and went to lift the lid of another pot. The tea eggs inside were all laid by his own free-range hens, and he cooked them himself. Although they were of little value, each egg contained his hard work. "No need to pay," Lao Gao said generously. The wind was strong, blowing the tarpaulin of the red tent with a rustling sound, and the incandescent lamp hanging in the middle of the shed shook, flickered twice due to poor electricity, and finally remained bright again. Straightened the frame that was blown to one side by the wind, tightened the opening of the cotton coat around his neck, and said to the 3 women coming from the east, "Want wontons?" The 3 women ignored him, walked forward a few steps, but stopped at the entrance of the tent, as if they deliberately wanted to use the lights to illuminate their graceful figures. They wore flesh-colored tights, like lotus roots in a lotus pond, and the lines under the open-down jacket collar were full, flashing more brilliant than the incandescent lamp. "Want some wontons? They're delicious and not expensive." Lao Gao's hope was rekindled. The gorgeousness and arrogance twisted dynamically like stickers on the wall, torn by the wind. The first to react was the plump woman on the left, who screamed sharply and loudly with amazing lung capacity. The other 2 women screamed as well. 3 waves of sound with different frequencies tore the entire street. Lao Gao realized that something must have happened in the tent. He stretched forward with a stiff neck and met Bao Yiding's eyes. Bao Yiding's Adam's apple moved, one arm stretched forward, and the other hand covered his neck. Blood overflowed from his fingers, staining his front red. There was another person in the shed, standing behind him, stabbing him in the back with a knife. Lao Gao suddenly realized that this was the homeless man who had squatted across the street not long ago. He wanted to escape, but his legs lost feeling, and he fell to the ground with half of his body paralyzed. His hands were also weak and unable to move his cumbersome body. Tramp let go of Bao Yiding and let him slide from the greasy square table to the ground. He held the knife and shifted his gaze to Lao Gao. Lao Gao looked at Bao Yiding, who was twitching under the table, and suddenly felt the heat gushing out of his lower body. Dog Street become obstructed. The frightened passers-by knocked over a big pot and charcoal stove, but ignored the burns and fled east and west with their heads in their hands. They collided against each other, hindering each other, and screamed one after another. "The police are coming!" someone shouted in the distance. The homeless